Chapter 10. Songs, Singing, and More. 1860s. Fiddle around to play or waste time. She was just fiddling around and not doing her chores. As the Civil War progressed, President Lincoln knew the war would be long and bloody. Hopes for a short conflict evaporated as the Confederate Army showed to be strong and unbending. In May of 1861, Arkansas joined what became 11 states in the South that seceded from the Union to form the CSA, Confederate States of America. Arkansas claimed to be under the presidency of Jefferson Davis and not Abraham Lincoln. The pressure was then for men to join their side of origin or go to the other side. Finding middle ground was hard and dangerous to do. For those who didn't join the military, old men, slaves, women, and children, there was a lot of extra work put on them to keep up with the demands of the home and farm. Certain times of the year required working from daylight to dark to complete the chores. Planting and harvesting took the energy and life out of the worker. Children had to help, take up the slack of the man who was dead or enlisted in the war. I'm sure Jenny tried to utilize her boys the best she could to help her. Children worked barefooted in the fields, and most preferred being footloose if weather allowed it. Wearing shoes with growing feet often made for sores and much discomfort. Slaves practiced singing songs as they worked. Men would sing a line, and women would respond in a line. Originally, the words were not understood by the owners, but the slaves were communicating to each other in song. However, the owners could tell by their voices that the songs were mostly about sorrow, but occasionally their voices were joyful. In time, these songs became known as Negro spirituals. The banjo was an invention of slave musicians used in the evenings and played on the front porches of their shacks. Among soldiers on both sides of the war, songs were sung to unite men or to entertain them. As many songs and techniques of playing were traded among the men, American folk music developed. The bugle was used to signal the soldiers on and off the battlefield. The drum beat helped men march and heighten their emotion for a fight. The fiddler was often the most sought after. The fiddle, with its fine strings and notes, seemed to have a voice that invoked the heart and soul, although the fiddle or the fiddler was considered by moralists as the tool of the devil. A place that had a fiddler was more envied than a doctor in the evenings as folks gathered. On Bear Creek, during the Civil War, there probably were few opportunities to go hear someone play an instrument. If there was a church meeting service, most likely songs were sung without instruments. A cappella, meaning in the manner of a chapel singing, was the most common form of music. Most music and lyrics were learned by ear and memory. Hearing others play or sing helped one learn the song. A style of reading music had developed at that time known as shape notes. With some training, the student could be taught what tune the individual note was to be played or sung. Singing in groups allowed for a harmony of ranges. Duet, trio, and quartet was possible if enough talent was available. Popular wartime songs such as Dixie, Battle Hymn of the Republic, and Goober Peas were sung according to the moment. When Johnny Comes Marching Home was the hope and sentiment that all men might return home alive, but the hymnal Amazing Grace, sung for over 100 years, was still very popular on the battlefield, on the cotton field, and at gatherings. The hymn was sung differently as the melody reflected the times and peoples who sang it. The familiar tune of today was borrowed from the melody of New Britain. The book, titled Sacred Harp, was a popular shape-note hymnal. First published in 1844 in New England, the book made its way to the American South. It was used at revival services held when an evangelist would go to an area and hold meetings. During open-air meetings and singings of songs, all were encouraged to participate, and those trained could sing in harmony according to their vocal range. Soprano, alto, tenor, and bass notes were all written so that each one could sing as if they were an instrument in a band. Prior to the Civil War, a famous fiddle tune, printed in 1847, was known as the Arkansas Traveler. The song comes from a story setting from the front porch of a family living in the backwoods. Up rides a stranger, and the following conversation is said to have taken place. "Does this road go to Little Rock? I've lived here 20 years, and it ain't gone nowhere yet. Does it make any difference which one of these roads I take?" "Not to me. Is that creek over there fordable? The ducks cross it every day. But how deep's the water? It comes up to here on the ducks. Can't you tell me how deep it is? There's water all the way to the bottom. Does the wind blow this away all the time? No, sometimes it blows the other way. Your corn's awful little and yellow. We planted the little yellow kind. How'd your taters turn out?" "They didn't turn out. Me and Sal dug them out. I noticed your wife's dress is mighty short. It'll be long enough before she gets another one. How long have you lived here? See that mountain over there? It was here when I arrived. Have you lived here all your life?" "Not yet." "How far did you go in school?" "About 10 miles. "No, I mean, what grade?" "Pretty steep. I noticed it's raining and your roof leaks. Why don't you fix it?" "When it's raining, I can't, and when it's not, it don't leak." "You don't know much." "Nope, but I'm not lost." "Well, you're not very far from a fool. Just these steps between us. Why don't you play the second part of that tune?" "I don't know it. Can you play it?" "Why, sure I can." "In that case, why don't you stay for supper? My, how humor changes with time. Have you noticed that songs and humor are generational? What one age finds good and funny is deplorable and boring to another. This trend would happen in haste with the advent of the beatnik movement in the next century. Beatniks were young, artistic people who rejected the mores of conventional society and began a dress style, music, and art that broke away from the homogeneous unity and tradition of young and old togetherness, which became a counterculture. Through times of survival, people of all ages melt back into a oneness that harmonizes the need for one another. In times of hard work and small margins, some humor is necessary for sanity and well-being. Many folk songs of the Civil War era were written to make the heart light. "Bile M. Cabbage Down," "Blue Tail Fly," "Cindy, Cindy," "Cluck Old Hen," to name a few. Men who had gone west in search of gold and fortune before the war spread songs like these favorites. Oh, Susanna and Clementine. Those who found no gold or fortune might have sung "My Old Kentucky Home, Poor Wayfaring Stranger," or "Carry Me Back to Old Virginie." "I Wish I Was in Dixieland" was published in 1860. The song was unofficially adopted as the anthem of the South, even though it was written by a Northerner and was a favorite of President Abraham Lincoln. The Battle Hymn of the Republic was sung by the Union side to roust soldiers into battle. A religious song tenting on the old campground is different from the other Civil War songs in that it is really an anti-war song. As the war was dragging on, the death toll being at an unimaginable level on both sides, it became a popular song to a people who yearned for peace. Something about songs of humor and songs of reflection conjure up our emotions and feelings, invoking us to be happy, sad, thankful, lonely, hopeful, or relaxed and sleepy. Having our feelings stimulated gives us a sense of being alive and living despite much fear and worry. Living in times of war and shortage takes its toll on us. Therefore, it is important to have moments of laughter, smiling, and glistening eyes to bring us cheer and solace. Even the pain of sadness and loneliness can be made into a balm of comfort when turned into music. Nonsense songs were entertaining and popular, with lyrics like Polly Wolly Doodle, a nonsensical and classic song that took the mind off reality. Because so much in life makes no sense to us, especially in times of civil war, singing a song with foolish lyrics gives grievance to our feelings that too much in life is senseless. Brush arbor meetings had started long before Ellis and Jenny Harness were born, but during their lifetimes, these meetings would have taken place in the summer. It was usually done after the field crops were laid by. Construction of corner poles and supports were placed, so an open pole structure was formed. Over the pole framing, branches with lots of leaves were placed on top to give shade and moderate protection in the evening. The structure was called a brush arbor. The location of the arbor most often was at the intersection of crossroads, and an itinerant preacher, sometimes called a circuit rider, would come and stay for a few days to hold revival preaching services. In a day when there were few social gatherings, the meetings attracted many from the community. Their loud singing carried through the evening air and could be heard from afar. In the future, Riley Harness, a grandson of Jenny's, professed faith at an arbor meeting near Welcome Home at a crossroad near the head of Jenny Harness Hollow. It was a time when a growing belief among Protestant preachers believed that salvation needed to be confessed publicly with great zeal. Emotionalism indicated spirituality and evidence of conversion. We have no record of Alex's personal faith in God, but we do of Jenny. Not that he wasn't a believer in Christ, but rather that we don't know. So little of Alex's life of 24 years was kept alive for us to know today. Like each one of us, his life was ordained by God, and his days were numbered before they were. Psalm 109:16. For 78 years, Jenny lived with only the memory of her husband. More than a lifetime of widowhood, she must have sung her soul's sorrow when she had moments of quiet. Mothers commonly use songs to help comfort a baby and child. Hearing a familiar voice while rocking has a way of bringing calm to the troubled. Soft lullabies sung simply and repetitively worked as a sleep aid to lull one to sleep. Studies have shown that mothers who sing lullabies to their infants have healthier babies, as it assists them in sleep and nursing. It literally helps to slow their heart rate and enhances emotional bonding of them both. Animals often lick their babies for a similar effect. Cats purr, but parents just hum or sing to their babies. Nothing portrays love and comfort any more than a mother nursing her child in her clutched arms. My father, Earl Harness, recalled in the years to come of how his grandpa Billy Harness, who was once the infant of Alec and Jenny, as an old man would sit and rock a baby to sleep. Unable to work on the farm and help with chores, he was restricted to the house, and with babies needing to be tended, he would rock them and hum a tune that Earl said made him lonesome to hear. It was a lullaby. using no words but a descending trilogy of woo-ah-woo, woo-ah-woo, woo-ah-woo. It was repeated, and each time softer, until the song faded. I wonder if it was the song his mother Jenny had used to rock him asleep. Billy was Jenny's last baby to birth. Prayers for God and unseen angels to keep them safe was a continuous song of her heart. Her moments of giving comfort and bonding with her boys in the stillness of the evenings until slumber overtook them and gave them the rest they all needed. Sleep is God's gift to man to help his body and mind be refreshed and strengthened for the next day. Our need for rest and its effects upon us is a mystery, but we all know that we must have sleep or we perish. Songs to express the soul and sleep to rest the body, whether on the battlefield or upon the bed, helped to cure the toll of the day. Rest, Jenny, and boys, get your sleep. Reflection. All ages of people have found that the voice made to sing or the instrument made to play can be a great tool to direct the mind and spirit. Lyrics and tunes are easier for us to remember than abstract concepts. The alphabet, when set to music, becomes easier to remember. Some assert that a song can touch us in deeper ways than mere words. The Lord will command His loving kindness in the daytime, and in the night His song shall be with me, a prayer to the God of my life. Psalm 42:8. End note. When times were hard and money scarce, instruments were made from simple and ordinary materials. Spoons slapped on the thigh make for rhythm and beat. A banjo made using a gourd or cigar box. A washboard can accompany with unusual background sounds. A wash tub can be made into a powerful bass. A stone jug can also make for bass. Gourds with small rocks inside them, shaken, will create sound and beat. Some crafters would carve and shape wood to make fiddles, guitars, and other string instruments. These instruments require some parts that couldn't be made from the local resources. Harder to acquire and costly, it was expensive to own or make a stringed instrument. My great-grandfather on my mother's side of the family could make a fiddle from wood. I recall seeing parts laid out on a bench on his back porch, where he was making a fiddle in the early 1960s. George Perry Ruff, b. 1875, born 1963, could make a fiddle from scratch, but couldn't play a scratch on one.